Chris Shandek, CYInterview, covering Las Vegas and the world. If you have not already, please subscribe to our YouTube channel to keep up with everything we have going on here in Las Vegas and beyond at CYInterview. Hit that subscribe button below. It means more to us than you can ever imagine. So just to begin, CYInterview would like to remember today the great Hollywood legend, actor, singer, and past CYInterview guest James Darren. Mr. Darren died yesterday at the age of 88 on September 2nd. We would like to send condolences to his family and friends to begin. And just have to say, we were fortunate enough to have Mr. Darren on CYInterview for approximately 30 minutes. You'll be able to hear that CYInterview at the end of this commentary. You'll be able to hear my chat with him, and featured columnist Jay Bilstein was also on that segment with us. My colleague, and it was a great segment about so many things from one of the greats in Hollywood. So just to begin, what a nice man James Darren is. When you go to one of his concerts, which I was fortunate enough to do here in Las Vegas in 2019 at the South Point Hotel and Casino, you realize he has a really loyal fan base of people who think that his work, whether it be on the screen or on the stage, are phenomenal. So here's a couple of things we learned from our CYInterview in 2019 with James Darren. He told some very good stories about partying with Tom Jones and how he would be out all night and he wouldn't be able to perform the next day. And Tom Jones said, "I'll be able to do it, so you can too." You'll be able to hear that story in the CYInterview coming up. Also talked about how show business is a friendship business, meaning if you know people in Hollywood and you know people in show business, you'll more likely be successful and have the opportunity to work on a variety of different projects, whether you're a singer, an actor, a comedian, and the such. So that was one other thing he said. And he saw his life as a singer and an actor as just a job. And he emphasized to us that family was the most important thing to him and the thing that mattered to him. When I had a chance to see his concert in 2019 at the South Point Hotel and Casino here in Las Vegas, he sang many famous songs, including "I Get a Kick Out of You," "Come Fly With Me," and "Just the Way You Are." At 83 years old at the time, Mr. Darren's vocals were strong. They were soothing. The audience was absolutely enjoying themselves. After the concert, I was able to spend a couple of minutes talking with him, but just a nice man who spent a lot of time with us, gave us a great CYInterview. And you'll be able to hear that CYInterview now. Go look up some of James Darren's work. Go look up his IMDb profile. Listen to this CYInterview. You'll learn a lot about James Darren, one of the greats in show business, 88 years old. Again, CYInterview sends its condolences to his family and friends. And we're now going to play that 30-minute interview with James Darren. I'm Chris Shandek for CYInterview. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. Please like this video. Please share it with your friends. Thank you so much. I will see you in the next one.
You're on CYInterview.
I'm Chris Shandek. Featured columnist Jay Bilstein is with me today on CYInterview. We welcome veteran actor and singer James Darren to CYInterview. He's going to be in Las Vegas for a few different things over the coming months. James, thanks so much for being with us today on CYInterview.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's definitely a great pleasure to have you. You have such a great body of work, and we look forward to talking about some of those things today. But before we get to that and I talk to you about these upcoming Las Vegas events you're doing, what else has been new in your life?
Well, I'm working on a new CD. It's called James Darren Live, and it's just portions of different live shows that I've done in the past year. And I'm putting it together. It should be on the market probably, I'd say, the 6 to 8 weeks.
Should be very interesting for sure. And I'm guessing your fans can go to your website to continue to find out new information about that music project?
Absolutely. I've never had a live album before. I've never done anything or released anything live. So this will be the first one, which will be kind of cool. Well, yeah, they can go to the website and also to Amazon. Amazon will have it as well.
Well, great. That's fabulous. Well, speaking of live performances, in August you're going to be having 2 shows on the 16th and 17th at the South Point Showroom. What is that going to be like coming back to perform in Vegas?
Well, I've been there. I've been at the South Point for about 9 or 10 years, and I'm there once or twice a year. I love it. I mean, I started in Vegas in 1966 at the Sands Hotel, opening for Joey Bishop, and then I worked for so many years in Las Vegas. I worked with Lola Falana, and then I worked with Buddy Hackett for 12 consecutive years, from 1970 to 1982. And I mean, that was the best experience of my life, because I learned so much from Buddy. He was a master showman, and we were great friends. We became really good buddies, and I just absolutely loved it. And in '82, I started. I had to leave him, unfortunately, to do T.J. Hooker.
How would you define the golden era to some who believe that is of Las Vegas, that you lived through and worked through and got to work, as you say, with the likes of Joey Bishop, who was in the Rat Pack, and Lola Falana?
Well, it was much more intimate. I mean, it was like a group of people. We were all friends, I mean, Lola and Joey, and of course Frank and Dean, Sammy, all the people that worked in Vegas at that time. We all hung out after the show. We go see actually Louis Prima and Keely Smith. That was the hang after the show, and it was just like a good old boys club, a good old boys and gals club. It was great, and like I said, it was much more intimate. Today it's so I guess corporate. It doesn't really feel, people don't hang today. That's for sure. I mean, when I was working with Buddy, I mean, I'd hang with Wayne or with Tom Jones. Anybody who was in town, actually. We'd meet after the show and just have a great time, stay up till 5 or 6 in the morning. And I'm not a person who can sleep in, because I have this guilt about, you have to get up and do your job. Like I come from a family of people who work from 9 to 5. So I would be up at 9 or 10 o'clock. And I told Tom Jones one night, we were out celebrating his birthday, which is the day before mine. His is June 7th, mine's June 8th. I said, I'm not going to be able to even work tonight, He said, you'll sing better than you ever did. Yeah, sure. Easy for him to say, because he sleeps till 4 in the afternoon, then takes his steam, and he's in good shape.
Well, I'm going to ask you one more, then I'm going to throw it to Jay. We want to talk about some of your great career highlights. So, of course, you were in Star Trek Deep Space Nine. So with that, a fan convention for Star Trek, July 31st to August 4th at the Rio All Suite Hotel and Casino. Thoughts on doing these fan conventions?
They're interesting. I mean, first of all, the people, the Star Trek fans are really dedicated people. I mean, they truly... If you're one of the favorites, they truly love you, And I've been really fortunate to be part of that whole whatever, I mean, Star Trek itself is an institution, and I love it. I really do. I love meeting the people. I love talking to the people, and I've met some wonderful people during my time at the conventions. People who I've actually remained friends with, and I have a good time. I really do. I think most of the actors that do that, or do those conventions rather, enjoy it and just enjoy the people.
Well, we obviously want to reflect on Gidget and T.J. Hooker and all these other great career highlights of yours, so I'm going to throw it to Jay.
Okay.
Good morning, James. Great to have you on this morning.
Good morning, Jay. Thank you.
I would say that some of the folks we've had on CYInterview deserve the word great before their name, and you're certainly one of them, the great James Darren.
And thank you so much.
And that greatness is not just from a personal point of view, what a body of work you have had. I'll start out with just an absolute phenomenal, one of the most iconic war movies, I would say, in history, The Guns of Navarone.
Yeah, that was a great experience.
I mean, Gregory Peck, David Niven, Anthony Quinn,
sure.
James Darren. Tell me about being on the Richard Harris, too. Tell me about
Richard Harris,
performing in The Guns of Navarone.
Anthony Quayle. I mean, a lot of great. Irene Pappas, Gia Scala. We had a great cast. The movie was scheduled for 5 months. And what happened was we began filming on the island of Rhodes in Greece. And then we got word that they were having some problems with the set of the guns, the actual guns, which was a huge set, about a city block long. And when we got to London, we were in Rhodes, or on Rhodes, excuse me, about 3 months, and then came to London, and the set had collapsed. The construction, something was wrong with it, and it actually collapsed. So we ended up filming for 7 months, and it was really great. Again, it was family, being together for 7 months. I love Stanley Baker and Tony Quinn and Gregory and David. We all had just a wonderful time. Gia Scala, Anthony Quinn taught us all how to play chess, and because we had lots of time in between shots, we'd only shoot maybe a quarter of a page a day, so we had lots of time while they were setting up. So Tony was kind enough to teach us all to play chess, and it was great. I have such fond memories of all those people, and it was so terrific for me, a young actor, to be working with such great actors. Legends, actually.
And I would say certainly in the 60s, and this probably held true over the course of the next 30 years. Now maybe some of the younger generations don't have as much of a memory, but probably out of the 60s, The Guns of Navarone and The Great Escape were the two greatest war movies that had been made to that point in time.
Yeah, absolutely. I tell you, The Guns of Navarone and The Great Escape, those films hold up.
Yes, they do.
Navarone, I can't speak for The Great Escape, even though I love the film. But for The Guns of Navarone, we had no CGI there. So everything we did was real, in the sense that we had two huge sound stages literally filled with water, and a ship, on hydraulic lifters rocking it, and with things they call tip tanks, which are about maybe 15 by 15 by 15 deep, filled with water that they would tip and come down a slide and make waves, or like a wave, and airplane engines up in the rafters, and people throwing water into the airplane engines with fire hoses so you couldn't hear. It just was so. Today you watch the film and it holds up. It looks fantastic. And
absolutely true. Now that film for you was bookended actually between 3 Gidget films, if I remember. The first of which was, I guess, a couple of years before, which was the original Gidget, and then there were a couple of more. One I recall was Gidget Goes Hawaiian, and I know there was one yet after that.
Gidget Goes to Rome.
That is correct. Talk to us about the Gidget films.
Well, let me just interject one thing. When I did the first Gidget, I did Navarone after that. And I got Navarone because of Gidget. Carl Foreman, who was the author of the script and the executive producer of The Guns of Navarone, wanted me in the film because I would attract the younger audience, and that's how I got that. Gidget was, I was so fortunate to get that role, because when you do a movie or a TV series, whatever, the character you play is what people fall in love with or hate, either one. And fortunately for me, they fell in love with Moondoggie, And so to get that role, it just started my career with a bang. You know, it was I was very fortunate in doing it, and I love working with Sandra Dee. She was just an adorable person, kind, sweet, and Cliff was great. He's a wonderful actor.
Cliff Robertson,
had a great time. Paul Winco's a great director.
And
really lucky, you know. And
you know, when
you all those the surfers, you know. Doug McClure, by the way, was in the first Gidget, and he was actually a surfer. And they found him when they were scouting locations on the beach.
You know, you're originally from Philadelphia, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And if I remember, Sandra Dee, I think, was she from Bayonne, New Jersey?
She's from New Jersey.
Yeah, I think she was actually from Bayonne. So you probably had a lot in common, though, coming from the Northeast and all. How was it working with Sandra Dee? Oh,
it was great, man. It was just, she was, first of all, so perfect for that role. She was the ideal Gidget as far as I was concerned, even though the real Gidget, Kathy, is totally different than Sandra Dee. But Sandra was just perfect for that character, I thought. And she was a delight to work with. She was so cooperative and so genuine, so giving. I mean, I can't say enough about Sandra Dee. She was just a beautiful person. Her mom was on the set all the time. I mean, I was falling in love with Sandra Dee like everybody else did after the film was released. And her mom was very protective, so I had to walk a straight line. You know what I mean?
You know what's amazing? There's so much in terms of the sensibilities of the end of the 50s and the beginning of the 60s that are informed by the Gidget movies and all that we could probably spend half an hour just on that. But your career has been so extensive. I'm going to move along quickly. Most amazingly, and I had forgotten this, Jimmy Darroch, the Flintstones. Yeah. I mean, talk to us quickly about that. Then I want to hop quickly to the Voyage of the Bottom of the Sea, and then, of course, Time Tunnel and get up to T.J. Hooker. But the Flintstones, I mean, Jimmy Darroch, what was that all about?
Well, Joe Barbera and Bill Hanna, I mean, I just was very fortunate. Anne Margaret and I were with the same management company. And they did an episode on Annie. They did one on Tony Curtis, Cary Grant, myself, and one other person, I believe.
Yeah, there were very few performers and actors who were ever immortalized in the Flintstones.
Exactly, and you are immortalized. I also did Hey There, It's Yogi Bear, which was a feature film where Yogi sings, and it's my voice, and Boo Boo says, "Hey, you sound just like James Darren," which is funny, you know. But yes, you are immortalized because those things will be around forever and ever, you know. But that was a kick. I mean, you know, how many people can say it? You're right. How many people can say I was in the Flintstones? You know, they did a character of Jimmy Darren or whomever, you know.
And it's interesting because it becomes contemporary because there are kids that up until a few years ago, I don't know if it's still true, we're still watching the Flintstones on almost a daily basis.
Oh, sure. And you know what? They'll do it again.
I'm sure they will because...
It'll be back, and kids will watch it again because it's timeless. I mean, the Flintstones. I love the show to begin with.
Just phenomenal stuff. I actually remember seeing you in Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, and then of course the Time Tunnel.
Right.
What was it like then? You know, this kind of television transition. You're in the movie, you know, Guns N' Navarone, Gidget, these are movies. Now you're on television. What was it like making the changeover?
Well, the thing is, I did not want to do it. I mean, when they offered me the Time Tunnel, I had turned it down, I don't know how many times. And Irwin Allen, who was very persuasive, aside from being a gentleman, he asked if I would have lunch with him one day, and I did in his office at 20th, and he convinced me to do it. He said, "This is going to be good for you. You're going to do it, and you're going to be happy you did it." And he was right. And because I didn't want to do it. It wasn't that I didn't want to do television. I just did not want to play. I didn't want to do science fiction, you know. And but Irwin was right. I mean, it was a great show. I loved doing it. I loved working with Bob Colbert and Leanne Merriweather. You know, we still see each other, the three of us, certainly at conventions and things like that, and we see each other socially as well.
It's just some of the shows you've been in. I mean, you were on Hawaii Five-0, another iconic show, which was brought back. Of course, the other one with Jack Lord. You were on Fantasy Island.
Yeah.
You were. Some of these were guest appearances.
Yeah, anyone that's Charlie's Angels, and I mean that was great working with those three terrific ladies. They were all wonderful. Everyone.
Just
you know, when you back in those days, Aaron Spelling, who used to be an actor and of course became an extremely successful producer, always liked me, and which is an advantage, and so he would use me quite a bit, whether I did Love Boat or Fantasy Island or whatever shows he did. He did SWAT. He did so many shows, and fortunately I was. I was on his list of favorites, so to speak, and I worked for him both as an actor and a director as well.
Well, it was obvious at the time because you were just everywhere, and I mean these are all Fantasy Island. You did a guest appearance, correct?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And remember, it's a friendship business. I mean, you're friends with whomever, and if you're fortunate, and I mean, all the work that I got after I left Columbia Pictures was all through friendships, whether it be Aaron, whether it be Frank Lupo or Rick Husky with T.J. Hooker. I mean, Rick got me T.J. Hooker, Rick Husky, who happens to be from Philadelphia also, by the way. And he was the creator and exec producer. And that's a friendship. Because I had met Rick Husky when I was doing the Time Tunnel, and Rick was in PR, in public relations, and then he moved on to become an incredibly successful producer and creator of TV shows. So those, like I said, it was all friendships.
Let's fast forward to another show that was just absolutely powerful for its time. Now we're in the 80s, T.J. Hooker. And if I recall correctly, you came in, I think, starting in what, the third season?
No, actually, the middle of the first.
The middle of the first.
About 6 months or so.
Right. It had started because William Shatner, who played T.J. Hooker, and of course there was Officer Romano, which was Adrian Med.
Absolutely.
They were the centerpiece, but then later you came on and you were paired up, if I recall correctly, with Heather Locklear. And one of the interesting things, I mean, I always wondered about this. Now I can actually ask someone. Heather Locklear was starring in T.J. Hooker at the same time as she was on Dynasty.
Yeah, she again was a favorite of Aaron Spelling's. I mean, he loved her. He knew that she would bring in viewers. That show, T.J. Hooker, came from Rick Husky. He had me do a guest appearance as a different character, and then put me on the show as Jim Corrigan. And when they put me on the show, they asked me. They said, "Who would you like to be partnered up with?" And I said, "You're kidding, right?" Heather, of course. I mean, I don't want to be partnered up with Bill, even though I love him. He's a great guy. We're good friends. But I mean, I'd much be in the car with Heather. And it's funny because the Adrian Smed character. Now, as I mentioned before, Rick Husky is the creator and also from Philly. Adrian Smed character was based a bit on me, on Jimmy Darren. He was from Philadelphia, blah, 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 whatever, into the character. And Rick had told me that later, after I'd gotten into the show. But that was a wonderful show. I did it for about 4 or 4.5 years, because then we moved from CBS to ABC, and it was great. I mean, again, Heather was just a delight to work with, and Adrian and Bill. We had so much fun on that show. Heather and I were together all the time because she was my partner. So I loved working with her. She's a wonderful person, and I miss her. I haven't seen her in a while.
What's so interesting is I was in my early 20s, and when the show first came out, immediately the heartthrob was Adrian Zmed, right? All the women in college, and Officer Romano, and then you came on the show, and I think you stole some of Adrian Zmed's thunder as being the heartthrob, because now there were two heartthrobs. There was Adrian Zmed and James Darren, and so half the women were, oh my God, Officer Romano, and the other were Officer Corrigan, and it was quite interesting, and if you're a guy in your early 20s and you have to compete with that, it's not the greatest thing on earth, but it was interesting. That show resonated with a lot of people for a lot of reasons. By the way, you say you haven't talked with Heather Locklear in a long time. Here was one of the most iconic television actresses of the 1980s, right? She's on Dynasty and she's on T.J. Hooker simultaneously.
Yes.
Today she's going through her challenges, unfortunately. Do you feel that the kind of pressure some of you folks in acting went through at a certain part, a certain meteoric fame and the pressures of performance and all can take their toll on someone later? Do you think perhaps that's some of what's impacted her?
I think it can happen, absolutely, and it does happen. I think if you allow it to the times that are not like peak wonderful times. You know, we all have our hills and valleys in our careers, and sometimes the slightest dip will send somebody on the wrong track, so to speak. Yes, that could easily happen. For me, I kind of maintain my stability because of my family, my kids, my grandkids now, and they're most important to me than anything. I mean, my career is important, but my family is more important for sure.
And also you must have been raised in a certain way, because here you are. You were a heartthrob, an actor, a singer. I mean, all this going on in this very, very powerful career spanning decades in Hollywood, and you're just a regular guy. You're just a normal. There's no sense of you being, full of yourself, condescending, anything like that. And I guess that begins in the home, no?
I think so. I mean, I was raised in a home with my uncles, aunts, grandparents, my mom and dad, my brother John. Maybe we were 9 people in a home in South Philadelphia, and of course, I always had that great family thing. I love family. I need it, and I have my grandkids and my kids and my brother. Now, of course, in California, you're separated by little towns here, but and I miss it. I miss being with a large family. I really do. But I think it gives you a sense of reality, a sense of. I mean, my family, they were all hardworking people, and they just, I guess they taught me that what the real values of life are, and what, for me, I love acting, I love singing, but it's a job, and I don't mean that to sound like I don't appreciate the fans. I love the fans, because without them, I wouldn't have a career. But a family is what's important in your life. That's what life is about. It isn't about a career. A career is a bonus, and you're fortunate if you have one, to have a career. I mean, I feel myself being extremely fortunate in many ways, and a lot of it is fate. You get a job here, a job there, and you thank God each time that you do. But without the family, I don't know if I would be so strong, so to speak.
Amazing stuff and certainly sage advice. And unfortunately, we're running out of time, Chris. Perhaps we can have James back to talk about the later days. I mean, Melrose Place and Star Trek Deep Space Nine. I mean, so much there. But James
was great. And I directed. Remember, after I worked with Heather on Hooker, I directed her in Melrose, which was great.
Yeah, you did make the segue into directing and all. Just a final question on that. What was the impetus for that? I mean, for example, I saw a photograph of you from 2012, and I said, "Look at this guy. This guy you look incredible. You look like I hadn't aged virtually at all." Sometimes people get behind the camera because they've been leading men or leading women, looks begin to fade and all. That doesn't seem to be the case with you. What was the impetus to get into directing?
When I was doing T.J. Hooker, there was one episode, it was the last episode to be filmed, they had not assigned a director. And I asked Rick Husky, if I could do it. I had enough interest in wanting to direct. And Rick said if he didn't do it, he'd let me do it. And when he told me that he wasn't doing it, I panicked because I figured, oh my Lord, what did I do? How am I going to handle this? I had never directed before. But thank God I had worked with the crew. They were a wonderful crew for 4.5 years, so they were great support. For that, for my first directorial job, and that's how I got into it. It just was, again, fate. One episode left, no director assigned to it, and then I went on to direct, Hunter and Walker, Texas Ranger, Melrose, Beverly Hills 90210, a whole bunch of things.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Just amazing, Chris.
Good fortune.
Well, James, thank you so much for all the interesting stories. We're going to have you back on CY.
Unbelievable stuff, Chris.
And
thank you guys for having me. I mean, I had a good time talking about that.
And for the fans, of course, go to his website, jamesdarren.com, to keep up to date with everything he's doing. And, of course, again, August 16th and 17th at the South Point Hotel and Casino at the South Point Showroom. And, of course, again, he'll be at the Regal All-Suite Hotel and Casino for the Star Trek convention as well, July 31st through August 4th. Should be some fun times with James Darren in Las Vegas. So for actor and singer James Darren, featured columnist Jay Bildstein, and CY Interview, I'm Chris Yandick. James, hang on with us.